welcome to the Talking True Cases podcast. For our repeat viewers on YouTube and listeners on Spotify, you'll probably be realizing that I neither look nor sound like regular host Mark Williams-Thomas. That's because Mark is on leave today. But what we wanted to do is go live for a very important podcast. My name is Jody Doherty-Cove, and I've been working with NQI often in the background since its launch. And today we're speaking with Andrea Garsala, the mother of missing Georgina Garsala. Andrea and I often spoke often. One second, I think we've got something that was playing there. Andrea and I often spoke at the Argus newspaper in Sussex as a journalist, and we're speaking once again today on the week that marks the 5th anniversary of Georgina's disappearance. Before I bring Andrea in, though, I just want to set some of the background. It was a Wednesday morning, like any other, when mother of two, Georgina, went to a local convenience store in Worthing, a seaside town on the south coast. That was March 7th, 2018. Tuesday this week marked 5 years, or 1,826 days, that she has not been heard from or seen ever since. On the day that she went missing, Georgina had arranged to meet her father after collecting a mobile phone, but she did not turn up. She was last seen on CCTV in a shop in Clifton Road at 10:30 a.m. A second unconfirmed sighting at about 4 p.m. places her walking down Chapel Road with an, as yet, unidentified woman. Sussex Police launched a murder inquiry in August 2019, and 2 men were arrested on suspicion of murder, but later released with no further action. The charity Crime Stoppers is offering a £20,000 reward for information. And Sussex Police's Superintendent Andy Wolstenholme spoke earlier this week on the anniversary of her disappearance.
We've attended over 900 homes and properties. We've spoken to well over 2,000 residents in Worthing and beyond. We've taken over 2,000 reports and statements. We've examined well over 100 exhibits. We've made extensive appeals using our social media, and also we've worked with the media across the country. I've been hugely impressed with the work that Georgina's mother, Andrea, has done on social media. There have been a number of searches that have taken place in this case in connection with Georgina. There are 9 nominated scenes, all of which that have been examined, and also 27 physical searches that we've undertaken in places in Worthing. Now, when you consider how long it has been, we have to consider the possibility that she's come to harm, possibly at the hands of someone else. I took the step to record it as a homicide after we'd conducted extensive proof of life inquiries, and we were unable to find any trace of Georgina being alive and active after that 7th of March 2018. The investigation has never been closed. We remain as committed today as we were on day one to finding out what happened to Georgina.
So, how does a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend go missing without a trace? Someone, somewhere must know what happened to her. Andrea is Georgina's mother, and she's speaking with us today amid a fresh appeal for information. Andrea, thanks for coming on.
Hi, thank you, Jodie, for inviting me today.
No, it's great. I mean, I've had the pleasure of speaking with you, Andrea, over the years as a reporter with the Argus in Sussex, and I've always been full of admiration for the relentless campaign that you've led to find any information about Georgina. It seemed to me that not a week would pass without me seeing, something about your latest efforts to find people to come forward. So, I guess just to start with, tell us about what's kept that flame inside you sort of burning for 5 years now.
Well, how can a mother give up on a daughter? That's what I always think, how I can't just give up on her. And if I don't do anything, if there's some days where I don't do anything, I feel guilty, or I feel sort of like I'm letting Georgina down. But so it's a constant role for me to keep thinking, what can I do next? How can I present this in a different way to attract attention of people, and just to keep Georgina's story out there. I do realise people scroll through and think, she's been missing 5 years, and it's probably not interesting to them. A lot of people, they followed it since day one, and they're really dedicated to Georgina's case. But for me, as a mom and a grandmother to Georgina's boys, I'm just passionate about finding the answers. I can't get on with my life and just think, we'll leave it to the police, and one day they might have answers, and just get on with my life. It's not something I can do.
And the campaign, has been absolutely relentless. And as I said, I'm absolutely full of admiration for what you've done over the years to keep Georgina's name in the spotlight. I remember once actually where you scaled the walls surrounding Teville Gate building site in Worthing. And correct me if I'm wrong, but witnesses reported seeing two men with Georgina near the site, sort of on the evening that she went missing. I think we actually have a clip of that. Jamil, would you mind playing that quickly?
Sussex Police and Worthing Borough Council. Who said nobody could get in here? I just climbed over this fence. And careful. If I can climb over here, who else can get over here? I've climbed over in 1 minute. That's how long it took me to get in here. How long could it take anybody else to get in here? We want answers now, Worthing Borough Council and Sussex Police. This isn't good enough. I want to find out where my daughter is, and I'm not getting any answers, and I want some answers right now.
So obviously that was a long time ago now, but just for the viewers who are watching along and watching that for the first time, just give a bit of background, a bit of context as to what was happening there.
I mean, a while before that, the Teville Gate demolition sites had been carried out, and I kept getting messages from people saying, Georgina went missing the same week as the demolition. The car park was being demolished and the Teville Gate. And I remember one weekend, I was getting quite a constant sort of flurry of these messages, and I don't think I slept all weekend in the end. I lay in bed there thinking it over and over and over, processing it and emailing the team on the weekend at night saying, what has it been checked out? What about the safety aspects of it? Do they, when they go in each day to do some more work on it, do they then carry out, a health and safety check to make sure nobody's in there? There's just these thoughts were just constantly going through my head all weekend. I don't think I slept, and obviously I didn't get a reply at the weekend, so I was like almost going crazy by Monday. I just wanted somebody to tell me about it, and they got back to me and they just said, well, we've got no, there's no knowledge or intelligence that Georgina was seen there, so we can't just search it. And I said, well, Clifton Road is about 5 minutes along the road. She was seen there was a sighting there of her that night by a witness, and he said he'd seen her, and he actually knew Georgina, and that's how he identified her. And that's only it might not even be 5 minutes, the Teville Gate site. So at that time, I just wanted the police to search it, do a search just to rule it out, for me, to give me peace of mind, because at the time there was actually buildings due to be carried out there. We did, me and a friend did actually get in contact with Mosaic, the landowners and the development, and asked about searching and things, and they said they were happy to go along with anything as long as the police did it and things like this. But the police at the time said no. Although at Andy Woolston home, when he took over, he did say he looked down some drains and things like that, but that wasn't really the search. I just meant, can you get some dogs in there just to give me a peace of mind? Because I thought I was horrified at the thought to think that if a complex would have been built there, and say something had happened to Georgina there, and that complex, there was never ever going to, they wasn't going to knock it down afterwards too if they had more evidence. So we never got a search like that. But Andy said he looked down drains and things like that, and there were some underground tanks that they could put a camera down, and that was it. I did speak to several people off the building site. They contacted me and they said, if it's more any reassurance to you, I've worked there and I can tell you that, the lorries that come and go, they're all loaded up and they're sort of weighed really, and they go off, they're sort of sold off to different areas, different places. So I'm sure we would have seen a body or body parts or whatever on there. He said, I can practically guarantee, this one guy said to me that, I've worked on there. And it was a bit reassuring, but I just wanted them to do that as a dog search or something, just to give me that peace of mind. And, I was frustrated very frustrated at the time. Why can't you do that? I was willing to, we contacted dog handlers ourselves to ask if they would, could possibly do it. And none of them would really do it, anything. They wanted to contact the police and find out. When the police sort of said there was no evidence that she'd been there, nobody wanted to really help.
And this is kind of where you found yourself actually in the investigation over the 5 years, that because of the relentless campaign that you've done on social media, people know to come to you with information. I know TikTok obviously playing a big role in that now, but does that put you in difficult positions at any point?
It does sometimes, because I always say come tell us as well, because then I can prompt the police and say, did you have this information, what come of it? And because sometimes when we have had meetings or when I have spoken to them, they might sort of mention something, we had somebody come forward with this information 6 months ago, but nothing come of it. And and I think, well, you never told us that. And they'll say, well, we didn't think it was very important, it was quite irrelevant. But to us, everything is really important to know what's going on. So I do always say to people, come to us, but you need to go to the police as well, because lots of people have come to us with information that they've heard from friends, or their boyfriends told them, or something like that. And they go into all the details of telling us on Messenger, or and then they say, I don't want to be involved. I'm not going to the police. I don't want to talk to the police. I just thought I'd tell you. And then at the same time, when I'm talking to the police and telling them that, they've once said, it's an offence actually to withhold information yourself. We need to know the names of these people. And I said, I promised that I wouldn't disclose their names, but I'm sure you could look into it. And so it does put me in a difficult position as well. But Crime Stoppers is anonymous, and the police are not going to give out people's names and things and information. It's only when it actually goes to court. But
very good point.
I can't really do anything with that information then, if it's just told to me like that, and it's not told to the police, because it's not first hand. But just want to mention, the reason why I climbed that gate at Tebble Gate was because I was told that it's very secure there. There's security at night and during the day, constant surveillance, and there was quite a big gap in the wall as well, which I didn't find till after I climbed. So one day I was postering around there. I was with my friend, and she said, why don't you climb, we'll do a video. And I was like, well, I've got to be on a night shift soon, and and I thought, what if I get arrested, and and I'm not going to turn up for my night duty. But I just it was about 6 p.m. and I sort of did it, and it was quite easy for me to get over, but getting out was harder. Getting out was harder. But when we walked around the corner, there was a hole in the fence round there, and it was just to prove really that it wasn't as secure as they said, and that I could get over at my age. I climbed over there. That was making my point, about the security of it.
No, and actually, you mentioned someone there actually that I wanted to speak about, because I constantly come through Worthing. I'm in Brighton, and whenever you go through Worthing, there was even to this day I think, but certainly over the years, you couldn't actually drive through Worthing without seeing Georgina's face there, and I think that was such a remarkable campaign. That had been, led by yourself. I mean, we're speaking very soon after the media maelstrom that was the very sad case of Nicola Bulley in the weeks following her disappearance. How do you think that case, that's sort of fresh in our memories now, how do you think that sort of compared to the days, weeks, and months following Georgina's disappearance?
I mean, it was overwhelming, I think, all for those 3 weeks. I mean, as sad as it was. And we always feel for families that have got missing, members, loved ones. But it was just so overwhelming how it would just flooded the media. It was everywhere. It was literally everywhere. I mean, everywhere you looked on TikTok, everybody was doing stories and podcasts and videos, and day and night it was, and it, you know, it was in the news. Every single news channel had, you know, was talking about it. And it is a bit, you know, I feel you do feel a bit sad as well yourself, because you think, well, we didn't get that for Georgina. Nobody approached us. Most of the things that I did get, we've had to constantly email companies, you know, media outlets, TV stations to cover like the birthday or anything. Just constant, really constantly emailing them, and not many of them have really just come to us and said, oh, can we do a story? And so I felt really disappointed and let down. And for the other missing people, because that week as well, there seemed to be quite a few other missing cases crop up that I'd never even heard of. And, you know, and I think I'm in the midst of it, and I know every missing case, and I'd seen some of these, you know, and I felt really sad. I thought, well, nobody's sort of helping these, and these aren't getting publicity. They're not getting awareness or anything. And I just really felt at that time really is a big imbalance of, you know, again, along the cases of missing people. And, you know, it makes you think, what is the criteria then for a missing person to get all this?
What do you think that is?
I mean, I've had lots of people say it was because of what happened with the police and all that. But personally, I don't just believe that, because I did hear Mark talking on one of the interviews saying about social discrimination, and it's not, you know, as well. I did hear that. And also, I do believe that myself, because lots of people have said it. And when we worked with Donald McIntyre, he said it as well, because Georgina's mixed race. She's a single mom, you know, she's from that background. She's not getting as much. People are not really interested as somebody else who's, you know, who's got a high powered job and this sort of thing, you know, middle class. And not that Georgina was lower class or anything. But it was the social discrimination. And I do believe that. And because I've looked at quite a few cases, and I've noticed similar ones to Georgina, a single mom, you know, maybe had some problems in her life. She didn't have such, you know, the way she grew up and things. Georgina struggled coming here from Libya, growing up in a different country like that, because her dad's Libyan, and she did struggle when she came here, I think, adapting to it and things. And that's probably what, you know, what a lot of her issues were. But she's no different than anybody else. Doesn't matter who you are or what you have. And I'm constantly saying it, I'm constantly writing about it. Nobody's any different, and every missing person deserves, you know, the same investigation, the same publicity, the same help and support.
Because I mean, it was obviously, that was speaking about the press, but and just for a little bit of context for viewers, as you said, you worked with investigative journalist Donald McIntyre for a number of months. I think over a year. How long was it?
Oh, it was over a year. Yeah. And then we went into lockdown, and then we hadn't finished because we were doing a podcast, and then we were just sort of going around sort of talking. They'd come down and meet us. So, and then we went into lockdown, so it put it all back.
Because I remember there was a virtual press conference at the time, and at that you spoke at length about some of the police failings in the case, but also that there was a substantial disservice due to her colour, race, and class. And I remember you saying that if she was, you know, Georgina Brown or Georgina Smith instead of Georgina Garcella, she would have got better treatment of the case. And that was sort of in reference to the police. Is that still something that you feel?
Not so much with the police team. I do notice it sometimes with members of the public or people who come on, comment on. We do get a lot on comments on posts and things, and you know, you'll get people making really rude comments about is she a Muslim? Oh, well, you know, then it'll be reference to Osama bin Laden and all sort of things like this, which is really annoying, you know. And I did find myself in the beginning answering them or responding, and then I just found myself getting deep into, you know, all this nastiness and vile, behavior from people that I try to ignore it now. But people have said, oh, where, you know, it's, oh, where's that name come from? Is she a Muslim? Is she this? Is she that? You know, and I'll say it's irrelevant. It's not, there's no relevance at all. She's a person, she's a missing person, and she's no different. Doesn't matter if her name's Georgina Brown or Garsala. You know, and for me, I mean, I don't even think of my children as mixed race or anything like that. They're all the same. We're all the same.
Yeah, I just wanted to cover that point. But if we just go back to the beginning of the case now, the opening weeks, obviously, in any investigation, absolutely crucial time to collect evidence, interview suspects, follow leads. I know that you're unhappy with the case and how this was handled in the opening stages. Just for the viewers here, how do you feel that went wrong?
I think where they didn't follow out all routes and avenues, like the Clifton Road in the beginning. They decided that because they'd gone to a few mobile phone shops and things and they hadn't seen Georgina, they decided then that Georgina hadn't gone to the town. So anywhere that way wasn't looked at. It was, she must have got into a car. She could have gone anywhere, you know, up this end of Clifton Road. Maybe something happened in one of the buildings around there. And that was how, you know, it was never she went into town. And that's what we were led to believe, even though I kept saying, have you checked the roads on that side of the road? Which I don't know if they're what they're called on that side. I've forgotten now. There are a couple of roads further down. Have they been checked? If you go through them, they lead you near the law courts and lead you into town. No, we haven't, you know, we don't, you know, we've got no reason to believe that Georgina went there, but you've got no reason to believe she went anywhere else because nobody else saw her after she came out of the Clifton Road store. And then on the CCTV, that came to light 14 months later when Andy took over. And when we had our first meeting with Andy, he showed us that. He took the laptop out and showed us that. And he said, we found some CCTV footage of the peripheral CCTV. Do you think this could be Georgina? And we were just in shock.
That's the Chapel Road CCTV we're looking at now. Yeah.
I mean, we just watched it over and over and over. And, you know, I think in the beginning we were just overwhelmed by, you know, I see my daughter there walking across the road, and, you know, that feeling of, it's hard to sort of express really, because, you know, we don't know what's happened to her. We didn't know if she was still alive. We didn't know what happened. And there she was 14 months later on this CCTV. And then a couple of months later, they said, oh, we're not really sure. We can't confirm this sighting. We're not really sure. And I said, that is my daughter. I can tell, you know, by the way she walks, the way she swings her arm, the way her hair is. But, you know, they just said, because some of the members of the team don't think it's her, but, you know, I'm a bit skeptical, but I wanted to put it out. And I just said, well, I can tell you that's my daughter. Even if we do get people saying, oh, well, the shoes look different and the bag's different. There was 6 hours different. There was 6 hours difference between those two CCTV sightings. And so nobody ever knows where she went in that sick. Nobody's ever come forward, despite me campaigning, posting up, literally begging and pleading with people to, you know, if they saw her that day, if she popped into someone's house, they must have been somewhere, but nobody has. And, you know, so she could have, I don't think she came home because there was nothing was changed or taken from home. But also, when we were working with Donald McIntyre, he brought Andy Crocker, in the cyber expert, and he looked at it. He said he studied it for several months, and he measured the shoulder measurements from the Clifton Road shop and the measurements on the Chapel Road, and he said that is her. He said, I can say that's her. He said, and something about the strap of the bag. He said, it's the belt of the coat that hangs down. But because that footage is very, very grainy, it's not very clear. Not like the one in the shop, which is, you know, considering the one in the shop is only one of those little cheap CCTV camera units, he told us, you know. But it's quite clear, that one.
So I think the question that many people will have is that, okay, well, if the police are saying that it's unconfirmed and that sighting's unconfirmed, can we corroborate it with any other CCTV in the area? Is that something that they've done?
Well,
something we can do?
Well, also because we had the internal review, they started doing the internal review, and then I think it was in 2020 we had the meeting with the reviewing officer, and then it turned out there was 27 failures. I'm not sure if it was 11 or 13, I can't remember now, but 11 or 13 of those was lost CCTV footage. And so nobody knows what the fit was. That linked to the Chapel Road, and the rest of them was, as they call, were minor ones. We never got to learn what all of them were, but that these were the major ones was the lost CCTV footage. And and I said, how can the police lose CCTV footage? And they said that they don't believe that even if it hadn't have been lost, it would have found Regina. I said, well, it might not have done, but it might have given us more leads, because we would have had, you might have seen where they were going. They might have had, and if they'd have looked at it, the most important thing was they actually retrieved it in April 2018, and they didn't look at it because of this theory they had that Regina hadn't gone into town. And so if they had looked at it in April 2018, I'm sure they would have had more leads. They could have had the CCTV footage from the bus, which only keeps their footage for a month. But because they didn't look at it,
it's kind of one failing leads to another, because if that wasn't looked, then they couldn't check anywhere else. I mean, just go back slightly there. I mean, did you say that there were some failings you're not aware of, or they wouldn't?
Yeah, they told us.
Idea of what do you mean?
There are some of the other ones were things like where they'd retrieved things to check forensically from various places, exhibits. They hadn't been labelled properly, so the label wasn't done properly. He called it very, very minor things, and then the rest we were never told. And then he got up and he said, well, I need to leave now, for I've got an appointment. And afterwards I requested another meeting. I said, can we have another meeting to hear the rest of these, the rest of them, the whole of these 27 failures? And we were told no, we couldn't, because some of them would, because it was a live investigation, we couldn't hear all of them. But he told us the most sort of important ones. And at the time, he said, well, it's a learning curve. Chief Constable Joe Shiner said it's alert. She apologized on behalf of them, and I said, it's not good enough. This is my daughter's investigation. And how do you expect us just to accept that? It's a learning curve. You lost CCTV, and that could have given vital information. It could have showed where they went or where they come from or anything. So it wasn't acceptable. I did put in about 3 appeals, complaints, and they looked at it and they just said, well, they've accepted responsibility and they've referred themselves to the IOPC, and there's not really anything we can do. And I said to the reviewing officer, who is actually responsible for losing the CCTV? Because you were doing this internal review and you spoke to people. And he said, well, nobody really was aware. Nobody really knew who was doing what. And I said, well, surely there was a chief investigating officer who was overseeing everything. And that's where I believe in the beginning, the first year of this case, I think it was a bit not really very substantial, and not like now.
Yeah, because it wasn't immediately a murder inquiry. That it became about a year and a half later, wasn't it?
Was it before?
I've got some notes here. Let's have a quick look. So it was.
Was it when Andy took over in between May and August? And that's when he told us, I think, that he'd had a meeting with the NCA, and they'd recommended that he record it as a no-body homicide. And I mean, I think there'd been some talk about it before that, so it wasn't a complete shock to us. I think in the first few months, whenever if like murder was mentioned, me and my daughters all were like, you know, we never mentioned that word, and if it was mentioned, we just kept it at the N word. But it was not really, it was never really in one of their hypotheses in the beginning, murder. But
would that have played a role, do you think, in the resources that they were giving to it, or?
I think they thought because of Georgina like going out, and you know, if she didn't have her children, she would go off and stay with friends, because she just didn't like to be by herself. And I was out a lot. I worked an awful lot, and her sisters, they all worked and they went to their boyfriends and things. So she didn't like staying. When she came back here to stay, she didn't like to be in the house by herself. So if she was here by herself, she would go off and she would go for drinks and things, or stay at people's houses and drink or whatever. And I think they went from that kind of, you know, that idea of Georgina had gone off perhaps on a jolly, as they called it once, you know.
The police called it, or is that what they were suggesting potentially?
Yeah,
that
in the very beginning. But I mean, we didn't in the beginning. It never entered our heads that Georgina was actually missing. We didn't think that. We just thought, oh, she's staying with friends. She was in this relationship, on-off relationship. It wasn't going very well. And I just thought maybe she's gone to her friends and she's sort of lying low, and she doesn't want him to know. She doesn't want him to know where she is. And that's why she's not telling me, so I don't tell him. And so it was all a bit like, we didn't really take it that serious. We didn't, you know, the first week, you know, we just thought, oh, she's staying with someone. Then he rang up, the boyfriend rang up, asked where she was, and I said, I thought she was with you. And it was all of a sudden, then it's like, well, where is she then? And then we started like taking lists of all her contacts on Facebook, on social media, me and her sisters, and trying to contact these people. Have you seen Georgina? And when was the last time you saw her? And then we started phoning around hospitals, just in case she'd had an accident and nobody knew where she was. But at the time, we never thought, oh, Georgina's missing, we need to phone the police. I thought just phoning and saying she hasn't been home would have been classed as wasting police time at that time, you know, because didn't really know much about it. I mean, now you see all the time, if someone's missing, you can phone the police if they haven't been home. But at the time, I just thought, I can't phone the police and say, well, my daughter hasn't been home and she's 30 and she likes staying with friends. I thought she'd be livid if she comes back, and we've contacted the police and said she's missing. And sort of that's why, you know, people always say, why did you take so long? And that is why, because, you know, maybe really people, yeah. And that's why she liked to be with people. She'll go off sometimes for 3 or 4 days, and you might not hear from her, or you might hear from her all the time because she, you know, but her phone wasn't working. There was all these little things that her phone wasn't working. So that's why she's not texting, or she'd come back to stay with me after she'd been in this relationship, and she said, can I come and stay with you for a while? And I brought all her stuff back, and then all that week she was around at his house every single night. And I was sort of said to her, I thought you were splitting up, you know. And so I might have been a bit annoyed, because I said, I brought all your stuff back and everything and that, and I thought you were splitting up. I thought you were going to make a break from it, and, you know, and try and get on with your life, and you know. And so I thought, oh, she's probably annoyed with me because I said that, so that's why she's not contacted me. She's trying to sort of play low as well.
So that was the last time you spoke to Georgina on that instance?
No, the last time I spoke to her was that morning on the 7th of March. I was going to work, and I come downstairs, and I just said, what are you doing? And she asked me, she just said, the phone's not working. I found an old one, and she asked me for a couple of pounds, and I gave her that. And I was just leaving for work, and she just said, I'm going to the job centre, and I'll try and see if I can get the phone fixed or the SIM card. And I said, don't forget, your dad's getting you a cheap phone. He's already bought her one. And I think he'd arranged to phone her or meet her in the town that day. And then that was it. As I went down the stairs, love you, mummy, love you, and that was it. And you know, that was the last words.
Obviously, the last confirmed sighting, the second sighting that you believe is Georgina, but the police are less sure. Wasn't there? She actually that was actually about the SIM card, wasn't it? That was confirmed?
When she went into Clifton Road store, the shop owner, he said that she'd asked about SIM cards, and where she'd actually taken the phone out of the bag was, people always say why she was getting all this stuff out. Well, when she was at my house, she took her phone apart and she was saying this, it doesn't work properly and that. So then I gave her this old phone, and then she took the back off that and the SIM card off that. That didn't fit into her phone. And then she was quite agitated because she said, well, that doesn't fit and that. And then she just sort of scraped them all up and just bunged them all into this carrier bag. So that's, that's from what when she got to the shop, he said she was picking sort of the SIM card out and the cover of the phone and getting them all out.
And she looks in great spirits. That's her just high-fiving the person behind me. And she looks in very good spirits in the CCTV.
Because people have said, I think she committed suicide and that, or she didn't look suicidal in that CCTV footage, and did she? I think that's not the look and the mood and demeanor of somebody who was about to go off and do something to themselves. I think she seemed quite happy and chatty, and that's Georgina. That's a typical Georgina. She's friendly. She makes friends quite easily. She chats to people quite easily, on the train. And she met a girl